Hi, everybody. I have read your discussion boards this morning and provided feedback in the rubric on Blackboard for you. This discussion board was intentionally full of self reflection, really wanting you to think about the role of the nurse leader as an advocate, as well as the quality of will and how those influence your practice, and then connecting those all with your Christian worldview. So I think you guys did a really nice job. Lots and lots of great examples of advocacy. So often we feel like if we're not in a position of formal leadership, formal power, that we're not really in a position to advocate for our patients or for our team members. And I think many of you have illustrated that that's simply not true. From as simple as communicating effectively with leadership about a problem. Several of you talked about implementing new product lines and the fact that they weren't adequate to meet the patient's needs, or you actually saw a decrease in the quality of their care. Stepping forward and being able to boldly say, hey, realize that we've made this change, but let me tell you how this is impacting our patients. I was really impressed with many of you how you talked about the use of evidence-based practice, how you collected data and information and presented that information to influence positive change. So not only are you advocating, but you're also acting as a change agent within your organization, which is a vital skill for nurse leaders. You guys did a really nice job with this. Your classmate Cindy did a particularly good job of kind of summarizing all of these key concepts. Cindy wrote in her primary thread that advocacy, the quality as a will, and God's word should guide nurse leaders as they strive to meet the needs of their patients, staff, and the organization. A leader can advocate for all members of the healthcare community and utilize will and Christian worldview to develop a workforce that is committed to positive outcomes for patients, each other, and their organization. I think Cindy wrapped that up really well. I do think that we are called as leaders, whether we're formal or informal, to advocate for the best outcomes of our client, to be very grounded in the concepts of what will means, and then to look at how does all of this get the underpinning of our Christian worldview? Unfortunately, many of us work in secular institutions where we can't openly say, how can I pray for you? My Christian beliefs allow me to have this insight. You can't go to a leader and say, as a Christian nurse leader, these are the things I want to do. It's unfortunate that the world we live in doesn't open and welcome that kind of dialogue in many secular areas. But as Christian nurse leaders, when we connect in our own thinking and in our own reflection of how our Christian faith guides our advocacy, we become the hands and feet of Christ without ever having to articulate Bible verses or to label ourselves in a very public way as a Christian. People know us by our deeds. They know us by our behaviors. And one of the ways we do that is through advocacy. I think the Bible is full of these beautiful verses and evidence of Jesus and how he advocated for the common man on behalf of us to his heavenly Father. So much so that he was crucified is that final act of advocacy. He took our place and pled our case in front of our Father for our salvation. We have a beautiful, perfect role model for advocacy. So I appreciate the thoughtfulness and how you all applied that to your work setting, and we're able to give some meaningful examples of that. So that was a job that was well done. Appreciate the fact that many of you have really perfected concise discussion boards, that you're stepping away from treating it like a paper, but more sharing your thoughts and being able to support it in an articulate manner. Lots of great resources were used, and that's awesome. This week, you've got a lot on your plate, and that's got to be done by Friday. So my hope is that you've already delved into your spiritual philosophies paper. Remember, your practicum log needs to be done as well. Go back through and read feedback from log 1 and log 2, especially if there are areas that you're struggling with, and apply those changes to log 3. You're going to want to make sure that your time log is correct, that all 50 hours that you've accomplished are properly documented in Typhon, and that your sum is the 50 hours for the course. I cannot post a final grade if there are errors in your practicum log. So you'll get an email from me that says, hey, final grades are posted. But if you are missing a grade for your practicum log, you will receive an incomplete for the course and won't be able to move forward in course progression until errors in your practicum log are corrected. And that's an MSN policy. So just be attentive to that as the week wraps up. A little bit, I think I gave you some information about the spiritual philosophies paper in last week's announcement, just to let you know to start thinking about it. It is important for you to look at Porter O'Grady and Malik's work with the 10 spiritual rules of the road. You're going to need to do more than read them. You're going to need to understand them and really study them so that when you compare them to O'Brien's work of the NURS servant leaders' behavioral themes, that you'll be able to compare and contrast. You'll be able to say, in these two bodies of work, these things are similar. In these two bodies of work, these concepts are dissimilar. And folks, there are lots of similarities and lots of dissimilarities. If all you do is read, you're not going to get into the nuances and the finesse of it. So spend some time really studying it. What do these key concepts mean? I think I suggested in the last announcement, you may want to write them down and draw lines and arrows, kind of do a concept map of connecting all the ideas together. How you approach it is up to you. You're going to start your paper with a brief introduction of the key concepts. Do not summarize every single one of them, just do a brief overview, and then go into your comparing and contrasting. This paper should use level 1, level 2, and level 3 headings. Use of headings appropriately at the graduate level is expected. As you work through your degree, you get further into more complex assignments like this, you're going to need to be using level 1, level 2, and level 3 headings appropriately. So use your APA manual to guide that developmental step in your writing. It really does organize your writing. It guides your reader. And I think those are important steps of graduate level writing and professional writing as you move outside your MSN program. Once you're done showing what's similar and what's not similar, you're going to look at the steps of integration of the tenets. Of these tenets, how can you integrate them into your role of nurse leader? I just talked about the challenges of working in a secular institution and how challenging it can be, that we cannot boldly and outwardly profess our faith, that it is not welcome, that it is actually seen as discriminatory in some work environments. How we work as Christian nurse leaders in our organization are through our behaviors. They will know him through our behaviors. They will know him through our actions, our deeds, how we treat one another. And these behavioral themes, these tenets of being a servant leader, do a really nice job of giving some salient points of this is what it looks like when I am walking congruent with my faith in a professional role. This is what I would see. So I want you to look at the integration of those tenets as you're in your role of a nurse leader. Folks, I want you to understand, I know that many of you are not in formal leadership positions. That's okay. It is my hope that in your undergraduate work, someone repeatedly said, we are all leaders, whether we are coordinating patient care, whether we're supervising our unlicensed assistive personnel, we're leading. So whether you're in a formal position or an informal position, you should be able to talk fairly clearly about how you can use these tenets to guide leadership behaviors. And then, of course, you're going to talk a little bit about implementation. This paper should be a thoughtful, progressive paper. I want you to spend some time with it. I know at this point, especially if you're picking up other courses, you're already in the throes of starting a new course. So my hope is that you've already begun the work on this paper. If you have questions or concerns, general questions, put those up on the Ask the Professor link. I'm happy to address them there. If they're personal questions to your own circumstance or to a grade, send me an email. The Ask the Professor link is good for general who, what, when, where, how. Tell me more about this instruction, because if you're having questions, it may be a question that somebody else has as well. So make sure that you use that as a first step in clarifying instructions. Personal questions, send me as an email. It is July 4th week. I know that tomorrow will be a holiday for many of you. My prayer is, I know that the holidays don't stop for the wary students, so hang in there. My prayer is that at some time tomorrow that you're able to stop and be still, that you're able to spend time with family, doing something fun that refills your well and gets you through this last hurdle in your course work. If you're a serviceman or woman, and you're in the military or you're in a service industry that supports our nation, please know how grateful I am for your service and your sacrifice. If you are a husband or a wife or a son or a daughter of an active duty service person, I know the sacrifice of being in that role. I know how challenging that must be. So I am grateful for you as well. I hope that whatever you do to celebrate the 4th of July, it is refilling and really anchors you in a sense of gratitude of how lucky we are to live in the nation that we are, as imperfect as it is, as chaotic sometimes as it feels. Um, it's still the greatest nation on earth, and I'm so grateful for our servicemen and women for their sacrifices. God bless you. I hope you guys have a great week. This will be your last feedback video. I don't give a feedback video from week 8 because, quite frankly, most of you guys are over it. You've moved on and moved on to your other course. You'll get feedback in your rubric, but I won't be sending a video. You will get an email that says, "Hey, your feedback is graded." If you do have questions or concerns, know that I'm here. I'll consistently be available to you until all of your questions are asked. I'm praying for your success, and I hope that wherever this journey leads you, that you get to the end of it feeling accomplished and successful. Y'all take care.